So tonight I'm going to be talking about a tool called Edward, which will help you develop microservices locally. First, a little bit about me. My name's Tom. I'm an area tech lead at a company called Yext. More on them later. There's a link to my GitHub, the other Tom Elliott, 2 L's and 2 T's. Everybody spells that wrong. My blog, elliott.io, which I hardly ever update, but that's OK because I'm fairly active on Twitter. The bad news is I mostly post puns. Let that sink in. That is the reaction I live for, groans. A little bit about the company I work for. Yext is a digital knowledge management provider. We take information about physical locations that businesses have, restaurants, stores, etc., aggregate them and push them out to the web so that they're always up to date on all of the directories out there, Google, Bing, Yelp, etc. And we've got about 100 engineers and about 2 microservices per engineer, which I'm reliably informed is more than Uber has. And those are mostly Java, but we're adding more and more Go all the time. I'm very fortunate that I lead the team that is only 100% Go. I've been using Go for about 2 years, and I love it. So what is Edward? Edward is a microservices manager for development, specifically for development. It builds and runs your microservices locally on your dev machine. It's implemented entirely in Go. It's open source, and you can find it at GitHub, Yext Edward. We have Mac OS and Linux support, and we keep it very simple so you can install with go-get with exactly the same path as the GitHub URL. So why did we build Edward? Well, when I first joined Yext, the team that I was on needed to start about 15 different microservices locally in order to test and develop. We had to be isolated from the office environment because of our job management. So I had to open 15 different tabs in the terminal, start up every single service one by one, wait for them to come through, go back, check that things haven't broken, find that they have, and then start all over again. People had their own solutions to this. Some people created scripts. Some had judicious use of the screens tool. And most people never turned their computers off. I really don't like leaving my computer on overnight. So started looking into building a tool to solve this problem, which is Edward. And Edward can build and launch your services with one command. Edward, start, name of your command. You can group services together so you can launch full features or products all at once. You can generate config automatically because there was no way in hell I was writing 200 services by hand. It will also restart your services when the source changes if you've got watches set up, and it allows you to warm up services when they start. So if you're using frameworks like Play, which do lazy loading of resources, you can send a request to a particular URL, and that will get everything loaded up so it's nice and fresh for when you come to use it. We also have update notifications, so all the engineers at Yext who are using this, which is the vast majority now, I'm thankful to say, will get told when there's a new version so they can update using the command we saw earlier. So let's dive straight in to a demo. OK, so this is a directory with a repo that I put together just to show off what Edward can do. It's a collection of small services, HTTP and RPC, which will work together to do some absolutely trivial things. So let's see what we have configured. We have one group called app, and 4 services. So the app is probably going to give us most of what we need to do, so let's start the app. So because Go builds and launches very quickly, it's built and start everything extremely fast. We can see just how fast in the output. So there's probably something we can look at, but I have absolutely no idea where it is. So let's have a look at the status. And we see that we have 2 services running, front and last touch, the ones which are started. Front is running on port 8080. That's probably going to be our UI. So let's go have a look at it. So this is displaying an interface to an RPC server, which will just tell us when we last pressed the button. Completely frivolous, as I said. Let's have a quick look at how this is configured. We have a single file called edward.json in the root of the project or group of projects. And this contains definitions for our groups and our services. We notice that the front service has a watch set up on the front directory, so we can get it to restart really quickly. So in order to demonstrate that, we'll need to run the logs. So we'll tell the whole app. We can see all of the output from front and last touch, marked for which service they are, and it will auto-update and tail the logs as new things come in. So we're going to reduce that to just being front, so we don't get spammed. And what we will do is make a very small change to the front service, and we're just going to change this log message from starting to listen on port to I'm listening. So we save that, and we go back to the logs, and we see that it started a build, the build succeeded, and then it restarted the service for us, and we've got this new message right there. We can also restart things by hand, so we'll notice that we still have the same saved state, because that's being held in the RPC service last touch. So we'll restart last touch, and refresh that page. And oh, the connection was shut down because I need to restart the front as well. And it was never pressed. Now, we've got a couple of other things going on here. We have the Fibonacci service, which doesn't work. And it's a little bit small for you to see, but it's telling us that we're missing something that's running on port 8082. We've only started 2 out of 4 services, so we've probably got something else we can start. So we'll list that again. We see that we have a Fibonacci service, so let's try starting that one. I can't spell Fibonacci, so it auto-completes for us. When that's started, we'll hit, shoot. Oh, how irritating. Comes straight out of my demo, and there's where I want to be. Close that. There we go. Restart, and we have a service that will just tell us the sequence of Fibonacci numbers. Finally, we have this messages thing in the back corner. 8083, probably another service we have to start up. So we'll do the same thing as before. We'll list. We don't have anything that might be messages. We have a database, but I know that's not it. So we are going to generate the config for a service that I know is in this folder. So we run Edward generate. It will list all the services that it finds. It will only create configuration for services that don't already exist, so it won't overwrite anything that we've done manually. So we hit yes, and we do Edward list. See that we have messages, so we're going to start. We need to start the database first, and then messages. Now you notice the database is taking a little bit longer to start up. That's actually running as a Docker Compose config, so it's setting up a couple of containers for data storage so we get a persistent database. The really nice thing about Edward is we can get the best of both worlds. We can run heavyweight stuff in containers that we can pass around and grab as we need, things that we know aren't going to change very often, and we can be running our other services locally and have a really fast iteration cycle that Go gives us. So let's refresh that. And so we can just post messages, which are stored into the database, and those will persist. I actually remembered to clear them out, which could have been awkward if you'd seen some of my test messages from earlier. Anything that I haven't covered? I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to go over at this point. I'm nearly down to a minute, so I'll bring this slide up while I wrap up, so if anyone's interested in giving Edward a go or contributing, they can take a picture so you've got the links. A few things we want to add in the future. We want to add some more generators. We can support Go, ICBM, which is our in-house build tool. We're working on Bazel. We can also do Docker files and proc files, and it will generate from those sources. We would like to have a dedicated setup for Docker, so it will interact with the API rather than doing everything from the command line. And after the talk that we just saw, I'm going to be putting together some plugins for this so that you can create your own generators. So that, in a nutshell, is Edward. I hope you found that interesting, and thanks for listening.